So, yesterday night we were looking at a lovely fire, and I don't know, you can't feel how warm it is, but it is definitely warm. And we've just used the thermometer to test which of these bulbs is the ones that's growing hot. But you can put your hand on various. No, I can't tell any difference really. Not with my hand, but I could with the temperature sensor. So how many temperature sensors would I need on a wood stove that was going to convert heat to electricity with a known and proud inefficiency rating? Given that the purpose of this fire is to, at this point in time, send out infrared radiation that warms my skin. Well, let's answer my own question. I think I'd like to know the temperature of the fire at the back on the metal. It would be adequate to know that from the outside rather than to subject the sensor to flame or corrosive gases. I'd like to know the temperature of the exit flue outside, because the gases that are inside that fire are more or less at the same temperature as most of the metalwork. Now there are two radiators attached to this fire, and I'd like to increase the thermal conductivity between the radiators and the stove, but I have measured figures in excess of the boiling point of water as the hot temperature of both white radiators. I don't particularly want to know the temperature of the fan or the setting of the fan at this point in time, because the purpose of that fan is to distribute what we might call waste heat. But it would be interesting to know the temperature of Mr. Sun's face. He's got a dollar there. I'm asking for dollars, people. I think it would be interesting, assuming the oil goes in at that point down there at ground level. I got some fittings to test out and see whether that's gonna. We could take the input temperature there and the exit temperature over on that corner of the white radiator. Those would be useful sense points. And I would. I'm not going to talk about we. I would be interested in knowing the continuous temperature at those 2 points, plus perhaps somewhere halfway through the middle of the system, assuming that all the volume on the right hand side that gets warmed up all that volume flows into the second radiator, and prior to it optionally, that's the prior to optionally, under manual control, going through the coil that will go round the hot stove pipe. And then I need to know the temperature of a body of water here at its body of oil here at its low temperature entry point, and the temperature of the same body at the top. And then the pipe will flow from the top there down to the bottom there, and so it will go through the pump and be circulating. Under some velocity because of the resistance of the pipe to. Anyway, so I think I will obtain temperatures of the order of 200 Celsius comfortably. Now, I don't particularly want to deal with high pressure steam, but if I am going to deal with high pressure steam, I'll deal with some small volumes of high pressure steam. And one of my ideas is that the low temperature steam that exits the 150 bar maybe 5 bar circle in the coil in the cylinder of oil would exit through a turbine called a Tesla turbine, and in so doing would generate electricity and would then move rapidly to the outside world, where the water would be condensed and maintain a near vacuum. Because the low pressure water vapor will rapidly pass through this turbine pump, and the objective, I believe, is to achieve condensation within the pump. Not sure about that. I have some discussions with my friend Paul to have. You're on my mind, Paul. You're on my phone and in my video. The notion of cryophorus, which is a transfer of heat from obviously from higher temperature to cooler temperature, but using a low pressure evaporation process so the steam doesn't build up. Now notice I won't want to be making electricity at the same time as I'm sitting next to the fire, particularly. So what I'm sort of doing is creating a flow from Mr. Sun to firewood over a process of 10 years. And then, say, from a process of combustion, which returns the carbon dioxide to atmosphere, I shan't say so much concentrating the heat as creating the heat in a reservoir of heat rather than a reservoir of wood. So I needn't be then thinking about or concerned about the fire. It's a sort of storage buffering of the heat in now why would I put it inside my house in a prominent place? Well, so that I can look at it and reflect on its performance on a regular basis, but principally because any heat that leaks out would be advantageous to me anyway. It's not like I'm putting it miles away or in a cupboard somewhere. If this large cylinder of warm hot oil leaks heat. I'm alarmed. I think you should have a gravity. Yeah, that's how we'll do it. I'll put it in a tray. The tray will have a gravity to outside, so that if an oil leak develops there, or if I choose to drain it rapidly, the hot oil, yeah, actually it would be best to have it under a fail-safe system where the hot oil is pumped somewhere else as fast as it possibly could be, under its own weight actually, because it's yeah, that's the, and that can run through plastic because that's a fail-safe system. Well, not a fail-safe, that's a heat dump. That's a pressure relief valve. That's a point in the system where it looks like it could be an impending catastrophe to be averted. The only concern I really had was that I didn't want to have my entire front room and floor layered with oil, because that would be a clean-up on a big scale. But a sump pan is what I'm saying. And then I'm happy with the safety, because I do not believe that the oil and the fire would be present in the same place. I think the oil and elevated temperature would be present in the same place. And depending on what you put in, no volatiles whatsoever is the rule inside the oil circulating part of this system. Now, if I can reach 300 degrees centigrade, I will have a warm caravan, a huge quantity of hot oil, and the ability to extract the heat from that hot oil very quickly, if I wanted to. And the process for doing that would be to use the hot oil to raise flash steam under low pressure and immediately condense the steam elsewhere. Now this then becomes a water injection system, doesn't it? It becomes a system for dosing. I would dose the cylinder with 1 litre or 10 litres or 50 litres of If I only dose it with 10 litres of steam, the worst steam escape possible at low pressure is 7 kilos. Sorry, 10 kilos if I put 10 litres in. 10 kilos of steam venting is going to be obvious wherever that's venting. It's, I don't think, ever going to be a catastrophic failure, because it's going into a vacuum. And the fact that it's going into a vacuum, or at least a rapid condensation process, worth reviewing in a sense, whether or not the cryophorus is the best way of reusing gas cylinders in a Tesla turbine. Gotta open the door because the room's filling up with smoke because I had the fire open. Well done, James. Thank you. So I'm glad I didn't do that job today, because what I would have done is put the wrong cylinder there. I think that cylinder needs to be bigger in proportion to this fire. The cylinder I had earmarked for this needs to be twice the size. And I've taken the idea of the flash steam into vacuum forward a bit, and I've discussed with now myself the idea that the injection of water into this system could be under solenoid control. It would definitely allow the well, no. Now we're talking about how do you stop the steam pressure from coming back, and that's why I'm saying it needs to be under solenoid control, isn't it? Because the default situation on flash steam. I might need to think about the dosing of the water, but either way, probably the answer is to have a little bit of tube like that going down into the cylinder, and then using the cylinder to bring the vapor at whether it is elevated pressure or reduced from atmospheric pressure down to a constant temperature. And if water builds up in the cylinder inner coil, water level builds up in the inner coil, I'm not too worried, because the vacuum will try to suck it through only at such times as I'm introducing more water from. Okay, so we got a water tank on top, the level of which needs to be maintained. Be nice to see the water level inside the boiler, actually, wouldn't it? It's a good general principle of steam engineering. Sorry, laughing at my own joke. Right. Escape hatch is immediately adjacent to the hot oil. I think I can live with that, because it's the only escape hatch anyway, apart from that escape hatch over there. So, carbon dioxide and other gas level monitoring. Yeah, we need some sensors in various places. One in the atmosphere of which I'm breathing would be a good idea, I think. Smoke alarms. What other kinds of sensors do I need in this draft? I need to know the rate of evolution of hot gases, do I? From the top, wind speed at the top of the chimney. It's too hot to measure. That could be a camera, actually. That would be quite nice to put a camera on there, because if we ever got the fire going really sensibly, you'd turn it into a rocket stove. What did we say earlier on? We said take the temperature at the back of the stove and assume that that's the flue gas temperature going up the chimney. Fair play. Next, take the temperature of the same volume of gas, because you're assuming that no gas escapes from this flue. And it's a consistent diameter for the length of that pipe that you can see. So there's no fan assisted combustion going on here, and even if there was, not too worried. I like the fact that this fire consumes the air that I'm breathing, because it draws in air from outside, but in an event of a higher humidity outside than inside, which is increasingly likely as I light more fires, oh dear, I've lost the thread. Okay, yes, it would be sensible to take humid air from outside and feed that into the combustion chamber rather than the front, along the front here. It would be better to pull humidity out of the room. Does humidity have very much meaning at the top of the chimney? Probably it does, actually. It's probably a proxy for combustion quality. Oxygen sensors, not really. Can't see the point of oxygen sensors in this situation. We know what the composition of oxygen in air is. Carbon dioxide concentration sensors. I've got one. The last time I looked, it cost £108. Don't really think I need to monitor carbon dioxide. I need to monitor temperature much more. So all these sensors that I'm thinking of putting on these devices I'm thinking of installing in the power station have to communicate back to one place. They then have to publish the latest data to the internet in order to cloud store the data from perhaps 16, 20, maybe even 2 to 4 dozen sensors on this device. Now, I believe that this is software as a service. I don't know what it's actually called, but I think it will allow me to define a device, the power station, comprising the wood stove, the chimney, the hypothetical domestic hot water unvented no, I think I should describe it as vented water cylinder. I'll take the pipe up through there and through that hole in the roof. That's another factor to it. Then it's an expansion vessel, isn't it? Heat storage expansion vessel, which is going to generate flash steam. Now, at some point, there's going to be a boiler failure, and water is going to get into the oil, whereupon the water will go down to the bottom of the oil and can be drained off into through the sump. And if I need to take all the oil away very quickly, I can drain it through the sump to the catchment outside, which will be down the hill and away from the fire. So the system will not be operating at elevated temperatures unless I am present, and the circumstances under which flash steam may or may not be generated will be self-evident from the operative sense of how warm the oil is, because they'll be able to put their hand. Yes, we want to make sure we know what the temperature of the oil is without actually touching anything, but that's no different from the wood stove, which is far too hot to touch as well. Now, next, I was almost getting to the point where I said there was 4 dozen sensors on this device. There will be. They get sent up to the internet, and then they get displayed in a form that is interesting. So one kind of sensor, more sophisticated than I've been thinking about so far, would be like a thermal imaging sensor. And it would want to communicate with the internet, not to say, it's 6 o'clock, the temperature's this, the humidity's that, the outside temperature's this. What it would try to do, be nice to do, would be to send a thermal imaging camera live to YouTube live streaming or Facebook live streaming or whatever. And then you would have a sense in which perhaps if this was the orientation and this was the field of view, you would have an overview of the machine live anywhere in the world at any one time. Now, so in the same way as Harry's mixer or my DeWalt could have a geopositioning sensor, you could connect to these sensors and depending on the state of the entire machine or a particular sensor, take action. Now, certain parts of this process are not going to be automated. Certain parts are obvious. You light the fire, you turn the system on, parts of the system, and that will be possible for me because I am living here engineering this project. But equally, it would enable me to make a live video and someone would say, well, you haven't got the fire going enough and you need to increase the temperature of the chimney, because they would see the temperature of the chimney as 3 different temperature readings, and they would know that the rate of oil flow through the copper pipe bent round the core was too hot or too cold or not flowing at an appropriate rate or whatever, and it could become a collaborative build endeavor. So when the new cylinder goes in, the Heath Robinson aspect of this will obviously become a design feature. Why not? Okay, last 33 minutes of thinking about sensors and LoRa and communicating on collaborative projects.